Welcome back to Jobo, everyone. I just want to kind of switch up the scenery because I film in my little office. I think, if I recall correctly, everything's been filmed in my office so far, so I figured, there I am, I would switch up the scenery and film laying down. You guys really liked the relationship video, and I figured I just kind of want to cover all the bases, and I want to film one on going through a breakup. The only reason I wanted to film these two videos, and again, it's so hard to be entertaining while filming these videos because I kind of get serious, you know what I mean? But I swear to God, I'm still kind of funny or whatever. Obviously, when I went through what I went through, which I really just don't feel like talking about it anymore, and I know this revolves around it, but whatever, I don't care. I got asked this so many times. Anytime I threw a question, a little posted up on Instagram, all my comments, there's always people, because people deal with this all the time. It doesn't even matter if you're going through it, because maybe you've been through it and you still have questions. Maybe you're gonna go through it, so you're just curious. Or maybe you're just curious on my experience. What I say in this video is all gonna be opinionated. Obviously, there's no factual way to deal with anything like that. These are all kind of just my tips, things I've learned. It seemed like the last one helped you guys. There's a lot of you guys agreeing, and so I think this was gonna do the same. So, first thing, going through a breakup, I'm gonna come off the bat being a little controversial. I personally find it very unrealistic, typically, for people to coexist as friends after a relationship. And with that comes what some people like to call backsliding. Getting back with an ex temporarily. Sleeping with your ex, hooking up with your ex, hanging out with your ex. After a breakup, that can be, in my mind, the most emotionally detrimental thing you can do, especially the progress you're trying to make is typically in the other direction, right? And I get you love someone, like we talked about in the relationship video. When people are in love, they tend to do crazy things because they're not thinking straight, they're thinking with their heart, not their brain. Where the friendship thing comes along is it's always a first thought. I think the scariest thing about a breakup, sometimes why people postpone breakups and push them off and get to unhealthy points in relationships without even realizing it, is because the scariest part of a breakup is realizing life without that person. That person is so typically integrated in your life, maybe not so much on a shorter relationship, but a year, 2 years, 10 years. Life without that person seems impossible, and sometimes a breakup can feel like that person died. It sounds up, but that's the truth. What happens is your first initial thought is maybe we can be friends. In my mind, that kind of just serves as like you're not able to cut that last tie. You think that if you have one tie, you think you can still feel safe. But I think that's the biggest mistake, and I think what happens is it's doable for a little bit, right? And it's one thing to be on good terms and another to be friends, right? I don't think being on good terms is a bad thing. I've never really been on bad terms with an ex. I mean, debatable, but like nothing bad, just like maybe not good. I think that friendship over time, again, you can give it a go, but it never ends up being realistic. You might want to bring someone else in your life. You might have people in your life that just doesn't work out. It might just be emotionally draining for you. You think it's a good thing, but again, you're not thinking straight and you're doing it out of fear almost, that when you actually implement that idea, like let's be friends, it doesn't always play out that way. And I think it can be a really toxic thing. So that's my first thing. Now, you just broke up with someone, you just cut all ties. I've talked about this before and I'll talk about it again. The scariest part about a breakup is that your support group in your life when you are single is typically your family and your friends. Like I don't really see where else your support group can come from, even if you're a lonely person, very introverted, maybe you don't have friends, whatever, which some people are like that, and usually they do have somebody, but your support group is still always gonna be your family and friends. When you get a significant other, that support group transitions almost completely, almost entirely, right? You obviously still have the support from your family and friends, but being with that person all the time, maybe living with that person, they are your primary support group. They are the ones that are told things about your life that maybe your family and friends aren't told about. They help you through problems that maybe only you two discuss. They might even know secrets that only you two know. What happens is when you go through a breakup, there's this, and I've experienced this is why I talk about this, and a lot of you guys probably relate, there's this awkward period where that transition needs to happen again. It needs to go from that significant other that is no longer in your life back to your family and friends. It's a really important transition because the transition doesn't happen overnight. There's a period there where you feel so uncomfortable and scared and lonely, like you don't, there's a little bit there where you just don't have a support group. You have one, your family and friends are actually typically there even more. You can't just immediately transfer that over. It's gonna take time. That is where people start to feel alone. And again, guys, like I said, I need to repeat it 4 times. These are opinions, right? So I can't generalize this for everyone. There is a period there where you just feel alone, and that happens, and that is always the scariest part for me, and that's why I tend to try to speed that process up. I tend to surround myself with my family and friends extra extra, you can kind of force that support group. That transition is going to take time, but you can kind of force and speed up that process a little bit. I don't find it to be good for you to be alone during that, because now you have no one. You could talk to your friends and family, but they're still not, in my mind, that transition period isn't fully happened yet. It's commencing, but it's not happening. And so I think if you ever wondered, maybe you never realized what I just said, you've ever wondered why you feel like you have all these people, but you have no one in the world, it's because that one person that used to be your support group is gone. That's a scary thing, and like I said, my advice to get through it is just to spend that extra time, maybe even talking, if not hanging out in-person time with your family and friends. Obviously, during my last breakup, I spent a lot of time back home in Temecula with my brother, my family, and even doing stuff like surfing and doing things I used to do that I haven't done as much that can kind of bring me back to my roots, right? You kind of need to rework. My dog just farted right here. Right here. Gassy little bastard. Now, healing. The healing process. It's different for everyone, completely different. Could be a day, could be a year, could be, you know what I mean? Like, I can't really tell you how that works. I can tell you things that I think help. The biggest thing I talk about all the time is perspective, putting yourself in the future. When you feel like it's the end of the world, you feel like your life is over, whether you're 16, and this kind of goes along with the relationship video too. When you're 16 or you're 40, maybe you're getting divorced, you feel like it's the end of the world, you need to most likely jump ahead. You need to put yourself in your shoes in 2, 5, 10 years and look back. Try to look back on the situation and think, how am I gonna look back on this? Am I gonna look back and think, damn, I wasted a year, 2 years of my life focused on someone that eventually is going to just poof? Or did I spend that time learning from the situation and implementing things that I could do better, things that I couldn't have helped, realizing things you did that were good, that were bad, just growing from the situation? And again, maybe that perspective is in a different direction. Maybe you need to go back to a time where you predicted something that happened, and maybe you at one point thought this wasn't a good idea, and now you're realizing, well, I was right. So maybe you learn to trust yourself more. Maybe you learn that your instincts are good in a time when you thought not to listen to. I don't know. Just have perspective on the situation. Realize it's not the end of the world. It is a relationship. It's love. Love can tend to make you feel that way. Love can tend to take every emotion and skyrocket it through the roof. So now I also think the logistics of what happened in a breakup, right? Maybe you're in an abusive relationship. Maybe someone cheated, or maybe even you fell out of love, right? Which just kind of made it easier because by the time the breakup happened, you weren't in love. Maybe you're the catalyst for the breakup. I don't know, right? The breakup's never easy on both sides, whether you are the reason for the breakup or you are kind of the breakup-y. Breakup-y, that'd be the one who was broken up with. I don't know. So everyone's healing time is going to be different, right? It could be a lot easier for someone to get over a breakup. Time is going to play a huge role, right? If you were with someone for a couple months, you are going to have a lot less of an issue than someone. I cannot imagine being with someone for 6, 8, 10 years married. I cannot imagine that, and I hope I don't ever experience that, but that is life, especially these days. Divorce rates are terrifying. Lucky for me, I'm still a large believer in love and marriage and family and stuff like that, so I'm not really too worried about that, especially since I started at a young age, and I've definitely learned a lot so far. Another big thing in a breakup that I think is very crucial is you're gonna go through a period where you think it's okay to see that person's stuff. I mean, we live in a world of social media. You have access to a bunch of photos of each other and all this life and blah, 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 and whether you delete that from your stuff or you decide to keep it because it's a part of your life, whatever, you're gonna go through a period where you think, okay, well, I can handle, like, you know, I'm doing well, I can handle seeing this person's stuff. And maybe you can. In some circumstances in my life, I could, but over time, same thing as like I said before, it kind of just becomes more and more of a bad idea over time. It becomes unhealthy. There's really no reason to. Again, if you want to feel like that person didn't die, but at least you're doing a good job of separating yourself, so be it. But I really do think watching that person's stuff, keeping up on their lives, especially with social media these days, social media has a tendency to make it look like every time both people are thriving. And whether you're looking at someone else's relationship on social media or your own while you're going through a breakup and you're looking at the other person's stuff and they're out partying with their friends and they're out with guys, girls, it's like you are gonna beat yourself up. It's gonna make your situation a lot harder, and in reality, there's no reason looking at something that just probably isn't an accurate depiction of what's going on. Or are you trying to get comfortable or are you gonna pee on the pillow? And so I would strongly encourage, it's something that's helped me, is kind of just limiting, if not completely alleviating, any visual or I guess audio contact with that other person. That's just me. Again, it's different for everyone. That's something that's helped me, something that might be able to help you guys. And I think the final thing I wanna say in this video, again, that last video was so long because I probably do have more opinions on relationships. I've spent a lot more time in a relationship than I have in the breakup process. The breakup process doesn't last as long, and it's a pretty straightforward thing, right? Like, if you use your brain instead of your heart, it will make things a lot easier. Your heart is not a very rational thinker. That's why it's not used to think. That's why your brain is there to think. And I don't want you to be a heartless person, but in moments like that, you sometimes have to be. You're not being heartless in a way that's affecting someone in a bad manner. You're being heartless in a way that's actually gonna help you disconnect from someone that you shouldn't have your heart really connected to anymore, you know? But I think the last thing to take away is gonna kind of pertain to what I said earlier. When you get out of a relationship, every amount of time used reminiscing or realizing how bad life is now and how much you miss that person and feeling any sort of amount of negativity. I don't wanna say sadness because I don't think you should hide your emotions. I think you should let your emotions play out. But focusing on those negative emotions isn't really gonna do you any good. There's a lot of good to take away from a breakup, especially when you're young. And again, I can only speak on my opinion, so if you're 40 or divorced watching this, I hope this can apply to you, but I might not have a good understanding of that. I can only kind of presume. But I really think you need to focus on the positives, right? I think a majority of relationships at the point of a breakup, there's a lot of sadness, but there's also probably a lot of positives that are gonna come from it. You're probably gonna alleviate a lot of fighting in your life. You're gonna alleviate a lot of moments of unhappiness. And like I said in the relationship video, a lot of the times a relationship tends to take more than it gives, right? So if you get rid of that relationship, maybe you're not benefiting from what it's giving you anymore, but if it was taking more than it was giving, you are essentially in a better place without it. And I think there's so much to learn. It's kind of like failures in life. I think you can learn so much more from failure than you can from success. And I know you say, well, if you're in a successful relationship, what do you have to learn? And maybe if you're lucky, that relationship does last till you're 100 and you never need to learn those things that you never learned. In a relationship, a great relationship, you're not learning the things you would learn from a bad relationship. Again, it sounds backwards because theoretically the relationship lasts forever. You don't need to learn those things, but you get my point. Learn from it, reflect, perspective, and also using perspective, realize where you went wrong in your relationship, right? Maybe it was the other person's fault. Maybe someone cheated on you. Maybe you were being abused, but you still, I'm not saying that's on you at all. I'm saying completely disconnecting from that, you still might have had points in your relationship where you could have improved on something, and you should look back and evaluate and just use it. You have that example, you might as well figure out and use it to help your future relationships. And just try to understand. See what you didn't like in that person, where you can try to find someone that maybe doesn't have those attributes or will make that part of that relationship, your next relationship, easier where this relationship struggled. Okay. One last thing, I'm gonna end it on this. I say this all the time, this is very important. Right as a breakup happens, your first guesstimate of how long you are gonna be miserable is probably so off. It's probably coming from your heart and it is not logical at all. It's probably gonna feel like you're gonna be miserable for months, and typically that process is a lot shorter than you think. Again, there's nothing wrong with it taking forever. Maybe you never get over it. Maybe you two get back together. That is always a thing, but that is not progressive towards today's conversation. If you think you're gonna be miserable for 6 months, I would bet you in a month, if you do take my advice on a lot of those things, you will be a lot farther along in the healing process than you think. Whatever you do to make that process easier, for some people it might be having another partner, a temporary partner. I'm just saying, for some people that helps. It might help that last disconnect. Maybe it's just completely disconnecting from relationships as a whole. Maybe it's stop looking for a relationship for a while. Maybe you were meant to be single for a little while and enjoy certain aspects of your life. Maybe you're in college, like we talked about the relationship episode. Whatever it may be, just know the healing process is gonna be easier than you think. It's gonna feel like it's the end of the world. It's gonna feel like you are gonna be miserable forever. It's gonna feel like you're never gonna get over that person. But as the weeks go by, it's like a very logarithmic curve, if you guys know what that means. Essentially, it's gonna feel like it's never gonna happen, and then out of nowhere, it's just gonna progress, and you are gonna start moving on way quicker than you thought. That's what I've experienced. Again, I can't promise that, but that is typically what I've seen from my friends and for myself, and I'm gonna end that there. Welcome to Jobo. I promise you we're gonna get back to comedic content. I had to make this, and I'm done. A lot of you guys requested it. You guys liked that first video. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. I'm streaming on Twitch now. Go follow my main channel, Jordan Bo. Twitch.tv/Jorbo if you wanna watch my streams, JORBEAU. I'll see you guys in the next video every Wednesday. Let's go, baby. We've been killing it. Hopefully YouTube likes me on this video. YouTube, make this trend. Let's go. People need help on breakups, okay? They need this. I'm gonna go now. Bye. Good riddance.